Greetings, Torah scholars! Welcome back to Advanced Judaism for Beginners. Today we'll discuss Zionism, secularism, and vegetarianism. And what does all of that have to do with Rabbi Abraham Isaac Kook? Welcome back again. My name is Ashi, and this is Advanced Judaism for Beginners. And we are in the middle of discussing the topic of Mitzvat Yeshuv Haaretz, the commandment of settling the land of Eretz Israel. And we were in the middle of speaking of Zionism, and this brings us to Rabbi Abraham Isaac Kook. Now, he was born in a fascinating Jewish family, a diverse Jewish family. From his father's side, he came from a Misnagdic, a Lithuanian Jewish family from his father's side. So they were known, the stereotype for Litvish, for Lithuanian Jew of the time was very scholarship Jew, a Torah scholarship Jew, a very intense learned Jew. And from his mother's side, his background was Hasidic, actually, and in fact, a Chabad Hasidic family, and indeed coming from family that were Hasidim of the Tzemach Tzedek, who is the third leader of the Chabad movement. So he had also that side, the Hasidim side, which very much it's more stereotyped, and it's known for its mysticism and the Hasidus and spirituality. So he was born into both of that, both the Torah scholarship aspect and the mysticism aspect, the Kabbalah aspect. And indeed, throughout Rabbi Kook's life, he approached various subjects, various topics, ideas, phenomenons that occurred in his lifetime. He approached them with a very comprehensive outlook. Again, both coming from a Torah scholarly approach and coming from the depth of mysticism and Hasidus. So, throughout his life, he both studied Hasidut and Kabbalah, and in fact, for his Torah studies, he went to the yeshiva of Volozhin, very famous yeshiva in Eastern Europe, in Belarus or Lithuania, I'm not sure, I have to search this up. But Volozhin was kind of the Harvard of the yeshiva world at the time. And during his time as a student there, in a very young age, so he had the teachers there, the Netziv and the Reb Chaim Brisk, who were giants of teachers. And he related more to the Netziv. He was a devout student of the Netziv. And indeed, Rabbi Kook became a rabbi in a very young age. So now, this is a little bit on the background of Rabbi Kook. Eventually, he makes it to the land of Israel, first to Yafo, and he settles there. Then he travels to Europe. During World War I, he was actually stuck in Europe. So he became a rabbi in London temporarily. He made a condition with them that once he can go back to the land of Israel, to Palestine at the time, once he could go back there after the war, then he'll resign his position as a rabbi. So they accepted him as a temporary rabbi. And indeed, after the war, he went back to the land of Israel and moved to Jerusalem. He passed away in the year 1935, so this is before the State of Israel. So now, just one topic I wanted to discuss today, which really illustrates how comprehensive and unique Rabbi Kook was in his outlook to the world. And this topic is vegetarianism. And again, you're not going to hear too many rabbis who speak about it. For sure, during that era, again, he was born in the mid-19th century. And again, Rabbi Kook very much gave a lot of teachings and ideas on various movements and phenomenons that occurred during his lifetime. He was born in Europe, where most of the Jews were actually traditional Jews. Most of the Jewish population in Europe of that time were what we would call today Orthodox Jews. And indeed, during his passing in 1935, the majority of the Jewish nation, unfortunately, were secular Jews, were not the traditionalists. And during his lifetime, there was great emancipation across Europe, allowing more Jews to obtain various jobs and positions, political positions. It was not equal in every place in Europe, the emancipation, but nevertheless it was moving more or less everywhere in the same direction, more or less. And during that phenomenon of emancipation, of giving more rights to the Jews, also it was accompanied by various secular movements in Europe, in the broader European communities, and indeed also in the Jewish communities of Europe. And various movements such as socialism, communism, various other secular movements, Zionism. So again, Rabbi Kook witnessed all these changes, and he gave various explanations to all those movements, how that too, it's part of the divine plan. And again, coming from his unique background as both a Hasidic Jew and a Lithuanian, a Litvish Jew, he indeed approached everything in a very comprehensive way. And one of these ideas that he discusses in few essays is vegetarianism. Now, there are various mentions of the idea of eating meat, which of course the Torah allows under certain conditions. And there are various ideas throughout Jewish literature and text about being compassionate to the animals, the whole idea of slaughtering with that knife, with a very, very thin and a very quick ritual. It's in order to be the most compassionate as possible towards the animal. So that there, of course, there are various ideas about Jewish attitude towards how to treat animals. Now, Rabbi Kook, in several essays, which his student, Harav Nazir, I'm sorry, the name is slipping from me, I believe Rav David Cohen, David Cohen, Harav Nazir, that was one of his main students of Rav Kook, and he compiled a lot of his work and edited a lot of his work. So he compiled it in an essay called Chazon Atzamchanut Ve'Shalom, the vision of vegetarianism and peace. And again, this was the Rav Kook. This is based on several essays of the Rav Kook that his student compiled in a more organized, in a series of few essays. Now, I just wanted to share with you a few ideas from that. First, Rav Kook brings the idea that indeed humans, were not created to slaughter other animals. And in fact, that is the story of creation in the Torah, where initially Adam was not allowed to eat any of the animals. And that permission to humans to eat animals came much later on, during Noah's time. So Rabbi Kook brings this as evidence that in humans, in their ultimate state, such as in the state of Adam in creation, they were not meant to eat other animals. And another point Rabbi Kook makes is that when the Torah does permit to eat animals, and it gives the instructions of how to do it, slaughtering in a merciful way, it does it in words in the Torah is ke'avat nafshecha, meaning it says that the Torah says that when you're going to desire, when you're going to have the urge, the desire to eat meat, this is how you can eat it, and it gives the instructions of how to do so. But Rav Kook makes the point is that it only allows you to do it because you have that inclination. So the Torah is only speaking, the Torah is not speaking to the ideal human, it speaks to that human, that Jew with those inclinations. So again, Rabbi Kook brings this idea that indeed to kill animals, it's not the ideal point, the ideal moral of a Jew, of humanity indeed. And again, Rabbi Kook goes in great length and he brings several ideas that we see in halacha, in Jewish law, and in the Torah. For example, when one slaughters the animal, there's a mitzvah where we cover the blood, that the blood that drips on the ground, we cover it with some earth. It's called mitzvat kisui hadam, the covering of blood. And Rabbi Kook brings us an idea that, look, we're embarrassed, we're ashamed of the blood that we shed. So again, indeed, we see here, Rabbi Kook writes, that we're embarrassed by the fact that we need to shed blood. And indeed, the compassionate God who created us all, created us in divine image, created us in a way that in our ideal way, we should not kill other animals. So then, if you're hearing these points of Rabbi Kook, you would jump and say, okay, then I should become a vegan. I should not eat any animals. But then Rabbi Kook make a very nuanced point, and you see how rich and deep is Rabbi Kook, and how comprehensive is his outlook. He says, however, humanity meant to go up the morality ladder one rung at a time, one step at a time. And one should not skip the steps. Meaning, Rabbi Kook explains like this, is that right now humanity needs to work on its morals between one person to the other person, to be kind, to be at peace, to be patient. And once you completed your work with other humans, then you're going up the steps, up the ladders, and then it's time for you to be compassionate towards the animals. So indeed, the ultimate is that we're going to be compassionate to the animals. And indeed, Rabbi Kook holds that when Mashiach will come, indeed, we'll be vegan again. Very fascinating point. And indeed, there's a whole scholarly discussion how would the Rav Kook will explain the avodat korbanot, the worship of sacrifices that will resume, God willing, in the third temple. How would Rabbi Kook square that in? So there are various explanations saying that there are going to be several stages, and yes, and the final stage will only be will just be a grains offering. Very interesting. But nevertheless, Rabbi Kook's point is that the ultimate moral state of human is to be vegetarian, but you should be careful not to jump to it. Why? What's the risk? Is because if you're going to jump to it, then you're going to miss other steps. And then you're going to feel, oh, look, I'm so good with the animal, and subconsciously I'm not going to work myself to do tshuva, to work on other moral issues that I have between me and other humans. So just to explain this, imagine someone who's very compassionate to animals, very, very kind. But yet, to other people, he's impatient, he's judging, he ignores, he's not kind. So, and by the way, it's a very easy, it's easier place to be at, because towards an animal, Rabbi Kook explains, it's very easy to feel compassionate for, because an animal is so vulnerable and is so needed, it needs you. And other people, other humans, they don't seem to be as vulnerable as you are. They seem to be in the same place as you are. So it will be easier for you to show compassion towards an animal versus having compassion and having good characteristics and good interactions with other people. And Rabbi Kook's point is that if you're going to skip the morality steps, and you're going to be kind to the animals, then you're not going to work yourself on other areas of working with other people, because you're going to tell yourself, look at me, I'm so compassionate, I'm so good with the animals, and you're going to feel to yourself, you're not, as Rabbi Kook says, you're not going to be me'orer b'tshuva. You're not going to be awakened. You're not going to be inspired to repent and to work on yourself because you're going to feel so self-satisfied. Look how compassionate I am to the animal. It's an idea that I have, that I thought about it. I think also for many people it's easier to be kind and have a relationship with an animal versus with people, because an animal will never ask you to change. A dog will be loyal to you. Whenever you're going to walk into the house, it's going to jump to lick you out of excitement. It will not ask you to change, unlike other human beings that will ask you to change. That's just a thought that I have. No offense to all dog lovers out there. But, so anyways, back to the point of Rav Kook. The Rav Kook makes a very nuanced point, which is, indeed, the ultimate point, the ultimate state of a human is not to hurt other animals and not to slaughter other animals. And he makes a point, it's impossible. How would God create a world where, in order for us to be sustained, we need to shed other blood of other animals? And he says this is only during the time where humans are not in their ultimate moral state. But again, on the other hand, his nuanced approach is, if you're just going to skip to it without completely elevating all the working on yourself step by step on all your other moral issues that you have to deal with, then you're going to become very corrupt and you're going to excuse yourself consciously and subconsciously by saying, look how compassionate I am to the animal. So anyways, this is the point I wanted to bring. Now, I do want to say, very fascinating, that the student of Rav Kook, Harav HaNazir, he was actually, who indeed he compiled these essays, he actually was vegetarian and he did not eat animals. And indeed, he was a great rabbi, a very, very holy and special person. And he definitely someone who worked on all the steps. So again, it is possible, but this is tremendous work that probably before Mashiach comes, it's more for the unique individuals. So again, I thought to start with this topic because it very much illustrates Rabbi Kook's approach, where he sees new ideas that occurred during his lifetime, and he gives from different ideas from the Torah and from Kabbalah to come up, to formulate a comprehensive approach in how do we look at those things. And indeed, we're going to see similar in the upcoming videos how he views secularism, which very much, took a strong trend and a strong effect among many Jewish communities during his lifetime, and how he viewed Zionism, where the majority of Zionism were indeed seculars. So we're going to continue this in the upcoming videos. Thank you again for joining. Have a great week.